I'd been shot several times already, 3 times, and I had gotten out of the arms room up there and fallen off of the roof. And I was just laying on the ground. And somebody started shooting at me from one of the windows and creased me across the nose. And Rob raised up and fired at whoever it was that was shooting at me and backed them out of the window. But in doing so, he exposed himself, and he was shot and killed instantly. He was about 5 feet from me. He was such a good kid.
What the heck were these guys getting ready for? 305 total firearms in their compound, semi-automatic AKs and ARs, 46 semi-automatic firearms modified to fully automatic, hand grenades, 16 AR-15 rifles, 2 AR-15 automatic rifles, 39 auto sear devices that convert receivers to fire automatically. I mean, this was a small army.
Bill Buford's team had 1 day's notice that their raid on the Branch Davidians had been compromised. What happened next would change ATF forever.
We sometimes get wrapped up in our guest stories. We don't want to tell the story. We want you to tell the story. You lived it. As I was preparing for this, we always start our podcast, Bill, by obviously welcoming our guest. Bill Buford, we're glad you're here. And then I looked into your resume. I was shot 6 times, stabbed once, and blown up once. Wow.
That's correct.
So we are really glad you're here.
So am I.
I'm sure you are. And I saw your lovely wife before we started, and I'll bet she is too. You probably saw more in your career, both in the service and in ATF, than most law enforcement officers ever see in their career. So we are particularly glad to have you here. You have an impressive record of service to your fellow Americans, to our country, and we'll get into all that. But first, we want to focus on something that maybe is one of the more notorious situations you were involved in. That fateful day, February 28th, 1993. Most Americans, most of us that were alive, and we realized some of our audience wasn't around in 1993. So most Americans watched the incident near Waco, Texas at Mount Carmel on TV. You, however, were part of a select team of ATF agents selected to serve search warrants and arrest warrants on the Branch Davidians, headed by David Koresh. Let's say, Bill, that the warrant service went well. You had arrest warrants and search warrants. What would have been the outcome that you were planning for? Would all of the Branch Davidians be arrested, or just some of them? Or would the weapons all be seized? Or what was going to happen had that been successful?
Well, definitely the weapons would have been seized. Right. The hand grenades would have been seized.
Yeah.
And they had 1 million rounds of ammunition.
Right.
And that all would have been seized.
Yeah, I heard it was 2 million.
Yeah.
What's
at least a million? What's 1 million or so?
Yeah, what's 1 million? Yeah, right.
Now the Texas Rangers said that they estimated they fired 11,000 rounds at us that day, and that we returned about 1,000 rounds. I know I myself, while I was in the room upstairs, I fired nearly 100 rounds, which is unbelievable in a police conflict.
Wow, it is.
But anyway, it's...
what about the arrests? Did you have arrest warrants for all of them or some of them?
No, just for Koresh.
Oh, Koresh, okay.
My guess would be that most of the Davidians, the males, and some of the females would have been charged under a conspiracy statute with the putting together the weapons.
Right.
There was one female in the compound that had been I think it was a Dade County or at least a law enforcement officer, a police officer in Florida somewhere. And she was shooting. She was actually killed that day, but she was firing an M16 out of one of the windows.
And you guys went in there, and from what I'm told, you had to go a day early. Tell us about what happened and why you went in when you went in, even though they were tipped off. Tell us about that.
Well, we had planned to do the raid actually on the Monday after the 28th, which would have been the first. And the local newspaper was writing a bunch of articles on Koresh.
Right.
And we had asked them to not publish those because we had an investigation going. And they said, we have our First Amendment rights and we'll publish whenever we want to. They told us they would let us know 24 hours before they published. They didn't. The first article came out on Saturday evening, and the leaders of ATF, the people who are big time in charge, said, can you go a day early? And so we said, yeah, we can go on a day early. We'd been training down at Fort Hood, Texas for a couple of days, and we felt like we were ready to go. So they moved it up to Sunday the 28th.
The day was particularly poignant for you and for the ATF and really all of America, because on that day, 4 of your colleagues were lost. You were seriously injured. One of the events we referred to at the beginning of this podcast. And I'm sure that day will live forever in your mind. How do you, looking back now, 33 some years, how do you feel about what happened? The deaths of your colleagues, your serious injuries? How does that all sit with you today?
Well, I think about it every day, even though it's been so long.
Right.
I think about the guys that I lost that day: Steve Willis, Conway LeBlue, Todd McKeon, and Rob Williams. And I think about what maybe I could have done different that would have maybe saved their lives, but I haven't come up with anything yet.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. I understand, and we'd love you to tell this story, if I got it right, that Williams actually probably saved your life. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yes. I'd been shot several times already, 3 times, and I had gotten out of the arms room up there and fallen off of the roof, and I was just laying on the ground. And somebody started shooting at me from one of the windows and creased me across the nose. And Rob raised up and fired at whoever it was that was shooting at me and backed them out of the window. But in doing so, he exposed himself, and he was shot and killed instantly. He was about 5 feet from me. He was such a good kid. He was more like a son than another agent to me.
That had to be tough. I know there's a picture of you two that I've seen standing next to a monument. And do you recall what's inscribed on that monument?
Yes, I do. It's greater love hath no man than he laid down his life for his friends.
Wow.
And that's what Rob did for me.
We've all heard that, but not too many of us have had to experience that. And that has to be unbelievable.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bill, Dennis brought up, the really strong point about, the hundreds of weapons that they had, hand grenades and AK-47s and all kinds of weaponry. And there's a story also that they were going to go into town to a McDonald's and kill everybody at the McDonald's. There's a lot of criminality involved in this cult, but what was their intention? That was Dennis's question earlier, and that was something that I'm curious about. I mean, why were they stockpiling all these weapons? What was their intention?
Well, best I know, they had intended, or what David Koresh thought he was Jesus Christ, or he had them believing he was Jesus Christ. Of course, he wasn't anywhere close to that, but he had prophesied that they would all be killed. All of the people in his community would be killed, and then they would, by law enforcement, and that they, on the third day, they would all be resurrected and they'd live with him forever in the Garden of Eden. And so we kind of played into his hand when we raided the place, because he said, here they come, just like I predicted, I guess. Nobody knows what he actually said, but anyway, he had predicted or had prophesied that they would all die at the hands of law enforcement, and that they had to fight as much as they could before they were all killed, and so that they could all be resurrected and live in the Garden of Eden.
Wow. So, Bill, what was the beginning? What was the beginning of this story? Long before the mission where you guys went to the Waco location there and David Koresh and the whole story that so many people know about, what was the impetus of the investigation? What was the very first thing that brought law enforcement and the ATF's attention to these folks?
The sheriff in the county there had been getting complaints from people in the neighborhood about explosions and automatic weapons fire coming from the compound. And he first went to the FBI, and they said, look, we don't want anything to do with it, or it's not our jurisdiction, something. And so they came to ATF and talked to Davy Aguilera, who was an agent out of Austin. And Davy Aguilera started investigating, and he was able to determine, get enough probable cause on the weapons that they were putting together, the fully automatic weapons and the hand grenades, to get the search warrant. It took him about a year to do so.
And now, didn't he actually infiltrate the group?
No, that was Robert Rodriguez.
That was Robert. Okay, got it.
Robert Rodriguez was part of a surveillance team that we had across the road watching the compound. And Robert went over one day, and they had a horse trainer, one of the round horse trainers out in front, and he went over and acted like he was interested in that horse trainer and got to talking to Koresh. And Koresh invited him to come in and attend worship services with him, and he was able to do so. It took a lot of courage on his part. He is really an unsung hero as far as I'm concerned, because he was in amongst them, and on the morning that we actually raided the place, he was lucky to have got out of there alive, because they realized the media, the television crew, tipped them off that we were on the way, and so Robert had to get out of there in a hurry.
And so how long was Robert doing that?
For about 2 to 3 weeks. He would go over there, not every day, I don't think, but he would go over there 2 or 3 times a week and talk with Koresh, and attended some of his worship services.
So the investigation gets started, and you guys are looking into the amount of guns, and as you had mentioned, the sheriff's getting the complaints and whatnot. There was one individual that was part of the group that was a registered firearms dealer, I believe. And, was that how they were able to procure all these weapons? Or was there some other kind of criminal channel where law enforcement's attention was focused on that as to how these weapons were obtained?
They bought a lot of them through the mail and obtained a lot of the stuff at gun shows. They actually had the women were making backpacks and camouflage stuff that they would sell at gun shows. And so they got to know a lot of the people. And although 99% of the people at gun shows are totally legitimate, there's always a few there that'll cross the line. And apparently they got in contact with some of the people crossing the line, and they provided them with the parts to convert the weapons from semi-automatic to full automatic.
Craig, I want to just make one statement because there's a lot out there in the media. There's a lot out there in the world about this whole incident. But I'm just going to say my opinion. My opinion is if you've got a group of people that have hundreds of weapons and hand grenades, and there's allegations of sexual assault and drug trafficking and all these kind of things, and then you've got a certain percentage of the population that wants to discuss all these conspiracy theories. I don't know how you can really wrap your head around the fact that all those things and having all those weapons, that there's not some wrongdoing to begin with. You know, it's kind of the culture of not being able to take responsibility. And clearly, all of the investigations, the complaints, whatever you want to call it, if they hadn't been doing what they were doing, the end story never would have happened. You never would have been shot. You never would have had to been there. Law enforcement wouldn't have had to intervene. So I just want to put blame where blame belongs. And Craig, it's all yours.
Oh, Bill and I have known each other for many years now, and I'm so thankful that he's our guest here today. He was part of a panel discussion we had at the National Law Enforcement Museum called Witness to History, and we talked about what happened at Waco and the agents who died there. We mentioned them before. I'm going to say their names again: Steve Willis, Conway LeBleu, Todd McKeon, and Rob Williams. I mean, these are heroes, law enforcement heroes who died in the line of duty doing a job that they didn't make the decision to go in themselves, but they were willing and they were very able to carry out a difficult and very dangerous job. Bill, what I want you to talk about is, so you made the decision, somebody did, the higher ups, I suppose, to go in a day early, all right? We're February 28th, 1993. And obviously you had put together quite a team. So you knew that trouble was possible. You knew that you might meet with resistance. And the element of surprise was obviously important to carry out this mission as safely as the agents and for the Branch Davidians themselves. You lost that element of surprise. As you alluded to earlier, Koresh and his followers were tipped off that ATF agents were coming, that a group of law enforcement agents were going to be coming to their doorstep serving warrants, and they decided that they were ready to resist and confront those agents. Once you lost that element of surprise, a decision was still to go in. And all hell broke loose, as we know, and agents were killed. 28 agents were wounded. Why was the decision to go in when you knew that Koresh and his followers were waiting for you?
That's a question I've asked for 30 some years. We needed the element of surprise. And at one point, Robert Rodriguez came out and said, hey, they know we're coming. Actually, a television crew had talked to a mailman, a local mailman, only the mailman was a rural mail carrier, and he was the son of the number 2 man inside the compound. And he immediately drove to the compound and informed Koresh that ATF was coming, according to these television reporters. And I know when one of the assistant tactical commander came over to where we were staging and said, they know we're coming, we got to go right now. So everybody get loaded up. And to this day, I wish I had said, no, we can't go. But I didn't. I was a good soldier. I put on my gear and we loaded up and started going. But that's something that bothers me all the time. Why didn't I just try to stop it right there? I don't know if he would have listened to me, but once I was ordered to go, I went. But
you were a good soldier. You did what you were told to do. Yeah.
Yeah. There was
one of the things that's confusing to me, and I probably knew this many years ago, but help me understand why you, as the resident agent in charge of Little Rock, Arkansas, were brought into this Waco, Texas. Let's serve the warrants in Waco, Texas. Why did they reach out to you in Little Rock, Arkansas, to be a part of this?
Well, at that time, ATF, each field division had a special response team or a SWAT team. And the Houston office, which covered Waco, felt like they needed additional help. So they brought in contiguous states. They brought in Dallas, the Dallas SRT, and the New Orleans SRT. We were the closest ones to them. And so that's the reason we were brought down there. We didn't have anything to do with the investigation, actually. Davey Aguilera did a great job on it. And we were just brought in at, I think we first were notified in late November or early December, and we started trying to plan how we would try to execute the warrant at that time.
You're lying in the hospital, I suppose, for quite a while. Shot 4 times with semi-automatic weaponry. And then the siege lasted until April 19th. All right. So you went in to serve the warrants on February 28th, you and your team of ATF agents. And then after the shootout had quieted down, then the FBI, I believe, took over the circumstances. They were in charge of what was happening at Mount Carmel after that point. And that lasted until April 19th. And a lot of us saw it live on television. Mount Carmel, Koresh and his followers, their campus there in flames. And we're still, I guess, not 100% sure how that fire started. Many people believe, as I do, that they started those fires themselves. But maybe we'll never get to the final answer on that. I'd like your thoughts. But what are you thinking? I don't know if you were still in the hospital at this point, but here we are on April 19th. Koresh and his followers, Mount Carmel is in flames, and 4 of your colleagues died, 28 agents wounded. What's going through your head at that point? And how, as Dennis talked about earlier, what are you thinking about those days? Here we are 33 years later.
Well, it's still difficult to think about, but as far as the fire is concerned, there is no doubt in my mind. I've heard some of the tapes that the FBI had of the Davidians inside yelling, "David said, light the fires, light the fires." And 4 independent arson investigators, not ATF, not FBI, did an investigation into the origin of the fires, and they found 4 separate points of origin inside the building that indicated that the fires had to be set, because you couldn't have had spontaneous fires start up in 4 places all at once. And one of the things that a lot of people claimed was that the FBI must have started it when they put in the gas to try to get them to come out. And that is absolutely false. The gas they put in there was not flammable. And so I remember watching it. I was out of the hospital at the time, and I remember watching the fire and thinking, "My God, what's happening to those children?" That was the thing that bothered me the most. We got some of the children out of there, but the children that died that day, I think there was over 20. And later the autopsies on a lot of the children showed that most of them were either shot, stabbed, or bludgeoned to death before the fire. They had no smoke in their lungs. Their parents killed them before the fire got to them.
Unbelievable. 76 people, Branch Davidians, died at that time on April 19th. And then 4 ATF agents had died on February 28th. So we lost 80 people as a result of what happened at Waco. One of the things that really bothered me after that, and I was at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. We had a memorial service for the 4 ATF agents who died at the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. It was one of the most moving, most powerful ceremonies I've ever been a part of. But it really bothered me at that point in time. This was probably 30 days later. after things had settled down. And there were still ATF agents that were coming to that ceremony on crutches and bandages. You were probably one of them. Frankly, I didn't know you at the time. But you know what really bothered me was the NRA, a lot of people in this country were calling ATF agents jackbooted government thugs. You were being criticized for overstepping your bounds. Everybody thought Koresh and his followers, or a lot of people thought maybe they didn't need to be bothered by the federal government, by ATF agents. And I think we've explained why it was so important for those warrants to be served. ATF agents didn't make that decision, all right? The men and women who went in there that day to serve those warrants, that wasn't your decision to go in there, but you were told to do a job, and you were willing to do it. And I just have to believe that you, after almost dying as a result of serving those warrants, you knew that 4 of your colleagues did die in service, and then to be called jackbooted government thugs, to be criticized, vilified by the media and others, that bothered me. And I'm just curious, how did that affect you and your colleagues as a result of all that criticism?
The criticism was terrible, and 99.9% of it was totally false. I know I was accused of being, I was a friend of Bill Clinton's at the time. Bill Clinton was of course, the governor of Arkansas before he became president. He was also the attorney general, and in my law enforcement activities in Arkansas prior to him becoming president, he and I were acquainted, and I wouldn't say we were really close friends, but we were certainly acquaintances. And I was accused of, at one point, one of the magazines came out and said that I killed all four of our guys at Waco because they had been Bill Clinton's bodyguards. Well, none of them had been on a Secret Service detail and worked for Clinton at all. That was totally false, but there were so many things like that that came out. They were just ridiculous. And it hurt. It hurt really bad to see all that and not be able to respond. There was one particular magazine that had some articles about me that were pretty bad. And I asked a lawyer friend of mine, can I sue that son of a gun? And they said, no, you're considered a public figure and therefore you wouldn't be able to sue. So I wasn't able to, but I didn't want any money. I just wanted them to eat their words because it was just so false. And most of the stuff was ridiculous that they were saying, just absolutely ridiculous. So nobody went in.
And how about the families of, Steve Willis, Conway LeBlue, Todd McKeon, and Rob Williams? They're listening to all of this, and their loved ones were gone. This is just so upsetting to me. Let's change the tone a bit. Reforms that came out of Waco. Obviously, there were mistakes made, decisions that went awry, and a lot of second guessing occurred. But help me understand what happened at ATF after Waco to maybe prevent something like that from ever happening again. Such a tragedy.
Well, they formalized the raid plans that we had to submit before you could get an arrest warrant or a search warrant. And you had to lay out exactly how you had planned to execute the warrant, why, when, and where. And before that, I had a written raid plan, but it was handwritten. And I testified before Congress, and they said you had no written raid plan. And I told them, yes, we did have a written raid plan. I wrote it. They said, well, we'd like to see a copy of it. And I left them a copy of it, but they never said anything more about it after they saw that we did have one. But anyway, I think the fact that ATF really emphasized the fact that you really got to have a solid plan approved by higher up, at least by the special agent in charge, and sometimes on up to the people in headquarters. The Department of the Treasury had approved our raid plan for the Branch Davidian compound. but many people didn't realize that. The Undersecretary of the Treasury for Law Enforcement was aware of what we were doing and had approved the plan. But not only that, because each division had their own special response team, they revised that, and they had teams, 5 teams set up throughout the United States with different people specially trained on these teams to respond to significant warrant executions, such as the Branch Davidian compound. And they really improved the training and the equipment and everything, and spent a lot of time emphasizing surround and call out, or not necessarily doing everything as a dynamic entry. The reason we went to a dynamic entry was the fact that we had been told by people who had been former members of the Branch Davidians that I would ask them, what will they do if we try to execute the warrant? He says, they'll all kill themselves. And so we decided maybe we could take them by surprise and keep them from, all shooting each other and killing each other. But as it turned out, we weren't able to. Actually, there's only 3 of us that actually ever made it inside the building, and that was the 3 of us that went in the window up on the roof, off the roof. The rest of the people never made it. Roland Ballesteros, an agent out of Houston, was running toward the front door yelling, "Police with a search warrant, police with a search warrant." David Koresh stepped outside and heard what he said, and then stepped back inside, and then they started shooting through the door, and Roland got his thumb shot off as he was trying to approach the door. But it was, I think, the fact that people were, concerned about maybe a lack of training for our small SRTs in each division, which were fine for execution, normal executions, a house with 2 people inside, something like that. Those teams were great. But for a major operation, you needed people similar to what the FBI's hostage rescue team is, people that train constantly for such a situation.
I want to go back, Bill. Craig asked you a question earlier, and it was, how long were you in the hospital?
A little over 6 weeks.
So most people envision being in a hospital, and you're laying in the hospital bed, and there's always that television that's on a bracket up on the wall there. So while you're in the hospital for 6 weeks, are you watching the news coverage and all the media about this?
I was, until they started going, when they started just trashing ATF, I didn't watch it anymore.
So how did that affect you personally? Not only physically are you trying to recover from gunshot wounds, but now mentally as well. And you're pretty much confined in a hospital bed and watching the trash that the media is putting out.
It was terrible. I just, like I say, after a while, I just quit watching it. I couldn't stand it. I felt guilty immediately after I got out of there and was in the hospital. I'm thinking, my God, what did I do today? Did I cause all this? Because I was one of the people that planned the raid. And of course, my 12-man SRT, there were 3 of my guys on my SRT were killed and 5 of us wounded out of 12. That's not a very good box score. But
so did you feel that you ever had the opportunity to really speak your mind and tell your side of the story?
No, never did. I was hoping we would be able to do that when I was called up to testify before Congress, but they didn't want to hear what we had to say. They'd ask a question, and then they'd open up a bag of McDonald's hamburgers and sit there and eat and carry on. And I don't think they ever heard a word we said, or at least what I said.
That's a waste of time.
Yeah. And since we're on this topic about how you felt, and did you ever get an opportunity to speak your mind, and it did finally come full circle for you, though, and you were acknowledged and awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award. And how did that for you become a full circle moment?
Well, that was one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me in my life, was receiving that Lifetime Achievement Award. It was primarily because I was the one who started the SRT program within ATF. We had, I decided, I had worked with local police departments and counties and state police on executing warrants, and sometimes we would have to ask them to help us. At one time, I only had 3 agents and myself for the whole state of Arkansas. And so there's no way we could execute warrants without their help. And I thought, we need to get our own team together. And my boss down in New Orleans said, okay, we'll do that. And I said, well, we'll call it a SWAT team. And people in headquarters heard SWAT. They said, no, we can't call them SWAT teams. SWAT teams kill people. So our first name was Entry Control Teams, ECTs. But then it grew from there into what it is today. I didn't have much to do. Yeah, I didn't have much to do with what they're doing today. I've been gone for a long time, but they've done an excellent job. And I'd compare our ATF SRTs today to the best in the country.
So SRT meaning Special Response Team, for those people that don't know. You said it was the best moment, the highlight of your life, getting the Lifetime Achievement Award. Just drill down on that a little bit more. Did you feel vindicated? Was that an opportunity to say, screw you to all the critics and whatnot? What was really going on in your head then?
Well, I was just amazed because there's so many people in ATF that have done so much more than I ever did. And I was just shocked when they awarded that to me. I couldn't believe it, and still kind of in disbelief. But it was a little bit of a vindication because of what happened at Mount Carmel on the 28th of February in '93. Of course, we had the bombing of the Murray Federal Building in Oklahoma City, and McVeigh said that he did that because of the assault on the Branch Davidians. So that added another load on my shoulders. I thought, God, not only did I get my guys killed down there, I've killed all these people in Oklahoma City. And it was it's really hard to put your head around that.
So do you feel that was a defining moment in how your life changed and how you are today, sitting here talking with us, that award maybe brought you to the realization that, no, this wasn't my fault. I was doing my job. It was those people that created the situation by the criminality that they were perpetrating and their actions. And I hear you so many times here saying that I did this or I caused that. You didn't cause any of that shit. You're doing your job. You're a cop. You're responding to the criminality and the unlawful actions of others. And it seems to me that thank God they gave you that award, because I'm hoping that you're in your happy place now, that you're sitting there and you feel vindicated and you feel your life was really worthwhile. Your service in the military, being shot and injured, was worthwhile. Your ATF service was worthwhile. And you're a fucking hero.
Well, I'm not that. I've worked with some heroes, but I don't consider myself one.
No, we think you're a hero. We believe you're a hero.
I just did what I was told.
Yeah.
No, you're a hero. Don't let anybody else say you're not a hero. Come on.
Well,
I agree. And you're a hero on this show for sure. We're not going to let anybody else say anything different, including you.
That's it.
But
we can say it here and we'll continue to say it.
And you touched on it just a moment ago. You said, I did a job and you did what you were told, right? And this is what bugs me so much about the criticism that the officers on the front lines have to deal with in law enforcement. They're told what to do. It's not their decision. They didn't make that decision to serve those warrants, right? You were told you're going to serve these warrants at Mount Carmel, and you had to come up with the plan to do it and do it as best you could and as safely as you could. And there were a lot of things that went wrong out of your control that ended up in tragedy. One question I have, and I don't remember you telling me this. So you're 6 weeks in the hospital after being shot 4 times on February 28, 1993. Did you ever go back in service at ATF? I don't remember that part of the story.
No, I went back and I retired in 2001.
Bill Buford walked away from Waco. He never really left it behind. In part 2, the moment-by-moment accounts of what happened inside that gunroom. A near-death encounter half a world away in Vietnam, and the words Bill has never forgotten. The reason he went back to a job that nearly killed him.